And I just want to share on 2 verses from Genesis, where it all began. Genesis 1:11. And God said, "Let the earth sprout vegetation, plants yielding seed, and fruit trees bearing fruit, in which is their seed, each according to its kind, on the earth." And it was so. And then Genesis chapter 1, verse 29. And God said, "Behold, I have given you every plant yielding seed that is on the face of all the earth, and every tree with seed in its fruit, and you shall have them for food." So even if we look back in creation, at the very beginning, at the very start of creation, and where every tree that God created, every type of tree and every type of plant that was seed bearing, each type of tree had a type of seed so that it could keep producing. Each type of fruit had a seed contained in it, and it was designed not just to be eaten, but to actually reproduce. So if you think about it, if Adam and Eve had just kept eating the fruits and vegetables of the garden without working the land to sow the seeds back in, they would have run out of food, because God actually designed each type of those types of trees and food, fruits and vegetables, to actually reproduce. So in the natural, physically, God has designed us to reproduce. Obviously, he designed us to populate the world and go forth and multiply. And as we always joke, I think the Chinese and the Indians, we do that very well. But not just physically, but spiritually, God has asked us to go forth and multiply and make disciples of all nations. So we were designed and created to sow. God has designed and created women especially to reproduce, not only physically, but also spiritually. And the beautiful example Pastor Nancy shared of the grandmother Eunice, and then passing on to Lois, and then Lois sowing into son Timothy. From generation to generation, we are here called upon as women to sow our faith into the next generation. So we are designed to sow in prayer, in teaching the word, and also in tithing, and also into the souls, into lost souls, into our marriage, into our church, into our community, all those things that Pastor Nancy listed. And if we don't sow, the very sad thing is it stops with us. It stops at our bloodline. It stops at our generation. So we were not designed just to eat of the fruit and get fat ourselves spiritually. And sometimes the reason why people feel stagnant is because perhaps maybe they're just storing up for themselves all these things, but they're not sowing out, they're not giving back, they're not sowing into the lives of others or into the kingdom. So, as was the case with every other living thing created by God, these plants and trees were designed to reproduce themselves through their seeds, one generation after the next. And so God has designed you with seed already in you. God has designed you already with some form of seed. Even if it's something you feel is very small, God is asking you tonight just to place it into his hands, to sow it back to him. Ask him, how can you apply the words, the truth that was spoken from the word from Pastor Nancy tonight? How can you apply the challenge that is put before you tonight? How are you sowing? What are you sowing? What are you reaping? God has designed you with seed already in you, just waiting to be sown. So what are you waiting for? Step out and start sowing. Amen and amen.